a certain fraction of the CPC voting base, and at least PPC voters, we all know that, say that the Conservative Party let down Conservative voters during the Freedom Convoy in the pandemic. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't. You know, I think the pandemic has been a tough time for our country, and we need a party that will bring it together and bring the country on a path forward.
Chrystia Freeland said that, inflation is a global crisis, a global problem. So knowing that, why won't the Liberal government, step away from globalist policies or groups like the WEF and focus on, Canadian citizens? Do you not care about Canadian citizens? If you find value in what I do, you want me to continue to be able to ask politicians the tough questions that, well, mainstream media reporters will never ask because they're so afraid of losing their funding, please head on to ottawareports.com. Hey everyone, William Diaz here with Rebel News currently, as you can see in front of, well, not in front, in Parliament Hill, on Parliament Hill. The reason why I'm here almost every day is because I'm here to go ask Conservative politicians and Liberal politicians questions about the economy, about the Freedom Convoy, about why they believe Pierre Poilievre is ahead of the Liberals in the recent poll by Main Street Research. Indeed, in that poll, we can see, as you can see on the screen right here, that according to the surveys, 40% of them would prefer voting for the Conservative Party instead of voting for the Liberal parties, because only 32% said that they intend on voting for the Liberal Party. So let's go see what MPs think about this poll. In a recent poll, we saw Pierre Poilievre dominating the Liberals in terms of voting intention. 30% for the CPC and only 32% for the Liberals. Why do you think that is?
I think his message is really resonating with Canadians. The Liberals didn't spend an ounce of their time this summer speaking to Canadians about the real issues that we're facing. We're looking at historic cost of living crisis, housing prices, tax increases are coming. Pierre Poilievre spoke about that throughout his entire campaign. He's been relentless on this in the last couple of weeks as leader, as has our team. We're united behind him, and I think Canadians are finally seeing a leader who is speaking to the issues that matter most to them, that are impacting their pocketbooks every day. And we've really heard nothing reassuring from the Liberals for months, or if ever.
I think that's a clear reflection on the leadership of Pierre Poilievre. I think the issues that he's been talking about actually matter to Canadians, and that's what Canadians, that's what they want to hear about, is that politicians come to this place to raise their voice. And what we've been hearing from Canadians is affordability. The fact that everything is going up. The cost of gas is going up. The cost of groceries is going up. The cost of raising your children is going up, and it's becoming more and more difficult for families to provide for their families in every way. And Pierre Poilievre is raising those issues, and we're pushing the government on lowering taxes and not increase the carbon tax, which they plan on doing, not increase taxes on small businesses and workers, which they plan on doing. And so I believe that's a direct reflection, those positive numbers, a direct reflection of that message.
I think it's really important that Canadians have their voice now, that we understand that the free spending of this Liberal government is impossible to continue on with. People are very, very concerned about the cost of living, and very clearly they're having their voices heard, and that's what we intend to do as Canada's Conservatives.
Well, I think Pierre's getting some good momentum as our new leader. We got a lot of work to do, and I think the Liberals and NDP aren't anxious for an election, so we want to lay the groundwork. Pierre's off to a great start. We need to make sure we get him in every part of the country, in our held ridings, but particularly unheld ones. So I'm excited to see what it all brings.
Well, I think Pierre's talking about issues that Canadians actually care about. Affordability, lower taxes, smaller government, getting rid of the bureaucracy and the red tape that is holding Canadian industry back. And you have a government right now that is talking virtue signaling and not getting anything done. If you can't offer the most basic services, like getting a passport, people's grocery bills are going up, they can't fuel their cars. This is impacting every Canadian, and that's what Pierre Poilievre is focusing on, is issues that affect every single Canadian every single day. And that's why I think you're seeing such a shift.
Yeah, sure. It seems like the Liberals, the only attack they have when Pierre Poilievre talks about, economic policies, it's his comments on crypto.
The centerpiece of his economic policy relating to the advice he gave to Canadians to invest in cryptocurrency.
Good question. That's a big question.
The leader of the opposition has refused to answer questions on his advice to Canadians to invest in cryptocurrency as a way to opt out of inflation. Does he stand by that advice today?
Quickly, are you able to highlight really what the Conservatives have in terms of economic policies to help Canadians in this inflationary crisis time?
Yeah, I hope the Liberals try and beat Pierre Poilievre on questions of the economy. If the economy and finance is the ballot question in the next election, we will win. And I believe we'll win anyway. But our issue is that the Liberals' out-of-control spending and lack of focus on monetary policy, even they joke, they don't think about it, that has put Canada's finances in a very precarious position. But even every Canadian family is starting to feel the pinch. When you have 4 to 5 Canadian families going further into debt just to pay their monthly bills, Canadian moms having to make decisions about what to put in their kids' school lunches because they can't afford groceries, that is something that Canadians shouldn't find themselves in. We should be a very prosperous country, but extreme activist agenda of the Liberals has put us in a very tough spot.
Yeah. Last question, super quick. A part of the Conservative voting base and PPC voters, at least, think that the CPC under Aaron O'Toole during the pandemic, during the Freedom Convoy, they feel like the CPC let them down. Do you agree with that assessment? And what do you think the CPC could do to restore those voters' trust in the Conservative Party?
Look, I think one of the best things about Pierre and why I've supported him from the beginning is you have a leader who is unapologetically conservative. He is not going to be intimidated. He is going to proudly stand on conservative values and principles and not back down when the pundits in the media start saying you're going off in the wrong direction. A perfect example was his position on the Bank of Canada. Now you have the media calling for Tim Macklin to resign when months ago Pierre Poilievre was saying that the decisions made by the Bank of Canada have helped rise and increase inflation and put Canada's finances on shaky footing. So Pierre didn't back down on that, and he's been proven to be right. And I think that's what voters, whether you're CPC or PPC or even Liberal and NDP, they're looking for a leader who they can trust is going to stand on his positions, and that's what Pierre Poilievre is doing.
Pierre Poilievre certainly has united the party behind him. I mean, he won with 70% of the vote. It's very clear that the Conservative Party chose him as the next leader. I think that was the right choice. You can see us being very effective in the House and really united behind a message that resonates with Canadians. I think that they've been waiting to hear a government who understands them and who is just relentless in going after the issues that's affecting them most, which is the cost of living and the upcoming tax increases that are coming in January to paychecks and also carbon tax in the spring.
You know what? I think it's important that we look forward. And when I look forward and I talk to a number of people who had said before that we're not too sure we might vote for the other party. They've come out and have said that we're excited. They bought a membership. They were out to vote for Pierre. So that's exciting, and we're seeing that right across the board. I mean, it's not just people who had come from other parties. I mean, we got people that came in from the NDP, the Liberals, young people who had never been a part of the party, people from new Canadians. So the overall, we've sold a record number of memberships who came out to support Pierre, and they came from people from all different backgrounds and political backgrounds as well. So it's exciting. I'm very excited for the number of months to come.
Last question for me. I'm going to let you go afterwards. Last week, I believe, Michael Barrett said that the NDP's Dental Care Act, as they call it, isn't a Dental Care Act at all. It's just sending some checks to some Canadians. That's his words. Do you agree with his assessment? And could you explain why that is?
What I'm concerned about with that is that what we're doing is adding to inflation, and so essentially what they've done is it's a temporary measure. What we really need to do is, if we're going to help Canadians, is to lower their costs overall. If you could lower the cost of their groceries, of their gas, and not increase them like increasing taxes, which is permanent, then you would actually help families. Because anything right now, even whether it's dental care or other measures that they have, will actually get wiped out just by the inflation itself. Inflation is starting to cost Canadians more and more. So it's one thing of giving a little bit, but then taking a lot more back with the other hand. That's the smoke and mirror games that the Liberals are playing.
I don't think anybody has confidence in the federal government to organize any sort of program. They can't administer basic passport services. I don't think how they're going to roll out a dental care program, child care program. They're losing more and more confidence in their ability to actually do anything. So what we're talking about, let's keep money in people's pockets themselves. They can fight inflation that way. We can get costs back down. We can get the carbon tax scrapped, let alone not increasing it next year. So we're putting a lot of pressure on the Liberals and NDP, and I know they're feeling it.
I think the big thing is that we know that 11 of the 13 provinces and territories here in Canada do have a dental program, and certainly, I mean, the cost of this dental program is going to be exorbitant. That doesn't mean that dental care is not important, but what we do understand is that those things, basic things that we have now, such as health care, this government is not doing well. They can't even get people a passport. How can we actually trust them to then implement a dental care program program. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Well, I think all of the government's dental care measures aren't going to make a long-term meaningful impact for those who need some more support. It's hard to believe that the NDP is continuing to back the Liberal government endlessly. We see them get up and question period the NDP and try to question the government on cost of living, and yet they're backing them all of the way. So I think everything that they're saying is obviously very contradictory and hypocritical, and I would urge them to see reason and stop supporting the Liberal government's deficit financing that's increasing inflation and causing my constituents and many others across the country to really feel out their pocketbooks. I mean, just how could they be supporting the Liberals? It's just unbelievable. So,
hey, Mr. O'Toole, a recent poll shows that under Pierre Poilievre, the CPC is destroying the Liberals in terms of voting intention. Why do you think that is?
I think people want change, and I think we're poised to win the next election. It'll be long overdue. The country needs a change.
Yeah. Last question. You know, there's a certain fraction of the CPC voting base, and at least PPC voters, we all know that, say that the Conservative Party let down Conservative voters during the Freedom Convoy in the pandemic. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't. You know, I think the pandemic has been a tough time for our country, and we need a party that will bring it together and bring the country on a path forward, and I think that's the Conservative.
How do you think the Conservative Party can restore those voters' trust that feel that way?
I think speaking to the needs of the country, both on economic issues, the cost of living, inflation. I think we've been doing that for well over a year. I think Pierre's doing a good job on that, and we need as much unity within the country as we do prosperity. So only the Conservatives offer that.
Hey, sir. You know, Chrystia Freeland said that, you know, inflation is a global crisis. Why won't you step away from your globalist policies?
Sorry.
And focus on Canadians instead? Hey. All right, thank you, sir. Have a good day.
What is the interview about?
Sir, Chrystia Freeland said that, you know, inflation is a global crisis, a global problem. So knowing that, why won't the Liberal government, you know, step away from globalist policies or groups like the WEF and focus on, you know, Canadian citizens? Do you not care about Canadian citizens? Do you care more about the World Economic Forum than Canadian citizens? All right, let's try another question, since you're definitely not answering this one. A recent poll showed that Pierre Poilievre is destroying the Liberals. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? All right, thanks, sir. Have a great day. So in a recent poll, Pierre Poilievre came out in front of the Liberal Party in terms of the voters' voting intention. Why do you think that is?
I'm just on my way to committee, so I'm not
so
too sure.
Liberals
I haven't seen what you...
The Main Street Research poll.
Pardon me?
Main Street Research poll.
Oh, I haven't seen what you're talking about, my friend.
Okay, but let's assume that it's right. Why do you think the CPC is doing better than the Liberals?
I'm not going to comment on something I haven't seen or read.
The Liberals can't answer a question?
Pardon me?
The Liberals cannot answer? Is that a prerequisite to be a conservative, to be a Liberal MP?
I'm not too sure what you're referencing there, my friend.
Not answering questions. Okay, well, go on Rebel News. You're going to see all the videos of you guys not answering questions. Let me know afterwards. So there you have it, folks. Here's what Conservative MPs had to say about the questions that I asked them. And well, you also saw how Liberal MPs answer independent reporters, but I guess you already knew that they never give any answer. Or when they're being talked to, they ask their parliamentary protective services, bodyguard, best friends to come to their defense and come defend them from, I guess, difficult question. That's the Canada we're living in, folks. For Rebel News, this is William Diaz. If you find value in what I do, you want me to continue to be able to ask politicians the tough questions that, well, mainstream media reporters will never ask because they're so afraid of losing their funding, please head on to ottawareports.com and consider making a donation. That way I will be able to come right here on Parliament Hill and ask the tough questions that mainstream media will never, ever ask.